hit record on there. All right, coaches, coaching, coaches, coaches. Is that a long ass name or what? What's up, Kevin? Thanks for hopping on because I know you got a way busy schedule. Co-owner of CFSC, Movement is Medicine. Work for did I say co-owner at MBSE? Sorry, CFSC.
No, you said CFSC.
Movement is Medicine, and then work for MBSE, right?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for hopping on too this morning.
No, happy.
I know we had kind of like some time changes, and I couldn't figure out Mountain Time versus Eastern Time, so.
Oh, happy to be here for sure.
So just kind of getting the ball rolling, just how I said, like all those different places you're working for right now, you got multiple hats, right? Mm-hmm. That you have to deal with every single day. One of the main questions I had for you is like, I've heard you before talk about like your passion planner.
Yep.
And how you kind of organize your crap throughout the day and being able to still focus on what you need done, but also like your passions for, hey, I want to get this in my career. I want to still do this and I want to do that. Can you kind of go through some of that? Like what's your daily, weekly organization to kind of get that done?
Yeah. Well, obviously you got to balance, like I have multiple kind of professional responsibilities at those three places, whether it's, traveling for CFSC or doing all the logistical stuff for events prior, doing therapy sessions with Movement is Medicine, or if I'm doing training at MBSC or management type stuff at MBSC, there's a lot of stuff to do. So, but the big thing is you have to block your time. You can't let your schedule you. Like you have to prioritize your schedule. And by that I mean like you block time to do email, you block time to do stuff projects for Movement is Medicine, or block time to do management stuff for MBSC. And then you allow your schedule for training to be in the time that you desire. I think lots of times coaches just say, okay, what time do you want to train? And people tell them, and then their schedule is being driven by somebody else. And when you give that responsibility and that freedom up to somebody else, then you lose that for yourself. So you have to, I think it starts by kind of setting the boundaries of when you want to do what, and then what works best as far as those jobs go. So like every day I have like time blocked off to do CFSC and Movement is Medicine, like business type stuff. And I have like a standing meeting with Christina and Bob about CFSC stuff. And then like I have my repetitive clients and all those. And then outside of that, if there's like passion projects I want to work on, I make sure I have a few hours open here and there. So like a lot of things, it's consistency kind of relies on preparing ahead of time, just like you would if you talk about people with nutrition or with training. As far as my professional schedule goes, it's just about doing your best to manage that. And, obviously, again, if you draw your comparisons to training and nutrition, it makes a lot of sense. There's road bumps and there's irregularities here and there. But if you're doing the best you can 80% of the time, then you're going to be productive and you're going to be able to manage your energy. You're not going to get burnt out, and you're going to be able to pursue like new things so you can grow and get better at the same time, just by prepping. So like you said, a passion planner, or some people prefer to use their phone, whatever it is, taking like some time on Sunday or whatever day of the week works for you to plan the week ahead, writing down, okay, these are all the big rocks I need to get in each week. These are my big responsibilities for Movement is Medicine, for MBSC, for CFSC that I need to prioritize, and how am I going to fit those in? And when you take the time to plan, it's not nearly as stressful or as hard as, it makes it sound kind of when you think of it all. But if you're always reacting and trying to like fill time afterwards, then it gets really hard. It can be difficult to find time to make everything fit,
The other thing I thought was really cool, and I heard you talking about this, was kind of like when life gets stressful, work gets stressful, I forget what you call it, but basically writing down what you're grateful for, right?
Oh, yeah, gratitude journaling. Yes. Yeah. And that's something kind of Mike had introduced us to, because Craig Ballantine has this thing called like it's another planner thing. It's called like the Perfect Day Planner or something like that. And whatever they have in it, they have this section for gratitude journaling. And then I think Passion Planner kind of adapted it from that, to be honest. And there's a little section where you can be like, hey, things I'm grateful for. And then like when you feel like you're stressed out or you have things that bug you or whatever, when you sit down, you write down all things you can be grateful for. It kind of puts things back in perspective for you. So what, like, I like the power of writing stuff, whether it's on your phone or on your piece of paper. But I think honestly, if you are very mindful and you meditate, and you do things mentally, that can work as well. And just reminding yourself of all the great things that you have opportunities to do, it kind of helps to reframe and refocus. Because, you know, when you got a lot going on, I think sometimes psychologically it can get away from you. So keeping an eye on all those things and reminding yourself of those things can be a powerful tool to do that.
Just organizing your shit too, right? Like organizing your day and then just thinking what you're thankful for.
It comes back to mindfulness. It really does. I think in like being mindful of, like, you know, listen, this thing doesn't have to stress you out, right? I think a lot of people realize how you react to stress is your choice. And if you're feeling like you're upset or you're tired, or you're stressed out or anxious, taking and reframing and writing things down and being mindful will really help all of that, because it allows you to be a little bit more stoic in your approach, or be a little bit more like consistent in how you do things without getting all over the map. So yeah, I mean, for me, writing things down and being mindful is really the basis of a lot of things that I do, you know.
Lane, I don't know if you saw I text you. Trying to be clean about it, but Lane's got a question for you too, Kevin.
Yeah, so just changing gears, and I appreciate your thoughts on that, Kevin. Those are some really good points, and I think that's always a struggle for coaches to just manage all of the chaos. So thanks for your thoughts on that. Changing gears a little bit, I recently read that article in the Outside magazine by Michael Easter that you contributed to. You know, you should be exercising for health, not performance. Mm-hmm. And I really like some of the thoughts that you had in that. My question a little bit further would be, how do you have that conversation, or like how do you personally have that conversation with a client about, you know, exercising for health versus performance, you know, goal setting? You know, sometimes I find it difficult to get people excited about the long-term approach and why that's so valuable, especially in a world where everybody just wants quick fixes.
Yeah, and I think it takes sitting down and having a conversation where you discuss immediate needs and goals and wants versus long-term goals and wants. Because, like, I always tell people, don't confuse the fact that training performance isn't necessarily a healthy endeavor. Like, performance in general isn't necessarily a healthy endeavor. Like, there's nothing healthy about playing football or playing hockey or playing soccer besides like some of the aerobic and like some of the training that might go into it. But that in general is not necessarily a great idea for long-term health outcomes. And so if you're working with an athlete, it's about, okay, there's going to be some stresses here, but then thinking about all the things that they're doing away from training for recovery, they're going to help them live a longer, healthier life, like whether that's sleep or nutrition or recovery-based things, right? For a general population, though, I always want to reframe things for them. Like, I'm like, where do you want to be 10 years from now? Like, what do you want your life to be 10 years down the road? Because like you said, a lot of them want quick fixes, and they never even take the time to think, like, what's my life going to be at 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever it might be. And then making them understand that the inputs that you provide now, like, I'm 30. What I do now is actually will profoundly affect where I am at 40 and 50 and 60. So making them understand that, like, okay, if you want that, if you want to be pain-free, or you want to be able to go jog and do a 5K, or you want to be able to play with your kids, or whatever it is, whatever's really meaningful to them, because that'll get them to listen. You know, like, their kids, if you ever train like a 40 or 50-year-old guy and he's like, listen, you know, I don't want to get more sleep. Like, I got to work more. But I'm like, well, do you care about your kids? Because, like, I want you to be able to see your kids. I want you to be able to play with your kids, you know, and that you got to find what kind of pull at their heartstrings a little bit, I think. And that's really important to have that conversation with them, and then kind of put it into perspective so they can understand what really matters, you know? So that's kind of like finding their why, right? We talk about the whole start with why. And if you identify that for them, then they can kind of see the big picture the right way, you know?
I like that a lot. And I guess just kind of a follow-up with that, you know, now you've got that client, you've got them engaged in the training program. You know, they're 6 months in, or they're a year in with you. How do you continually keep them excited about training for longevity, you know, while still spicing in, you know, things that keep them interested in staying with our business?
Yep. I think that it's a balance of providing them what they want within the context of what they need, right? So we all have principles for training, right? So there's some things that I'm going to be pretty steadfast on, like the joint by joint approach. Generally, like our CFSC progression regression model, not doing things that cause pain or weigh risk versus reward. Like those are all our stone principles that aren't really going to change, right? But within that, there's a lot of room to play and be creative. And the longer you do this for a living, you find out where you can bend the rules and change the rules because you've learned the rules in general. So from there, that's when you can provide variety and do things a little bit differently that aren't as structured. And that's how you keep people engaged. And it's interesting. And I found this, like, it doesn't take much. I think sometimes we get bored before the client gets bored. And we're like, oh, we've been doing the same thing. Well, it's because you're doing it 10 times a day. They're doing it once. They're doing it like 2-3 times a week, right? So sometimes I think we believe people get bored sooner than they do. But like, for instance, with our adult program, Ken and I have been doing it, and like we've been changing things up. Like last night for warm-up, we pretty much did almost like an obstacle course. But it was all stuff we wanted them to do. They did ladders. Then they did crawling. Then they did bounds. Then they carried and threw a med ball. And like they did it in like, it's just the order we put it in. That's all stuff we already do, right? But just in a different kind of organization through the warm-up. And for them, they're like, oh, that was so cool. I'm like, we did that last week, just in a different order. You know what I mean? And so then you just slightly change the context of how you deliver it. And they're like, oh, that was so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't really much different. But since they don't live in this every day, they can be enamored that way. So sometimes just your delivery can really, really help. And then you can continue to slide into things that you want to make sure they really get, you know?
I like that a lot. And a couple of things I would just summarize for some of our coaches on the call. I really like how you emphasize, like, you really have to know the rules first before you can bend the rules and play with the rules. You know, and I think that's really important to make sure you know your principles, know your basics, know what it is you're trying to accomplish. And then once you have that really, really established, it allows you the creativity to start, doing some of those really fun things you talked about. And I found similar things that it can be pretty straightforward with. Just little tweaks can make all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's all Mexican food in the end.
I like that. That's good.
Hey, so I got one for you. Like, Brendan's coming out. You are too in June to talk to us. That's going to be awesome.
I'm looking forward to it.
Brendan's going to talk. I kind of want to hear your end of things. So Brendan's going to talk about focusing on the little things a little bit, because I know, like, when you go to MBSC, man, I was amazed when I went there. Like, I think you had your group all lined up to do cook squats. And I'm looking at one of your clients, and he's like over 6 foot. He's pretty heavy weighted guy. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be great, because I'm going to see Kevin be able to coach this guy, because this is not going to look pretty. And the guy does it. I'm like, I could not do any prettier. That was amazing. And what I've heard is, like, and even seen when I was at MBSC, you guys focus on the little things from the get-go. So it's not like, yeah, obviously we're coaches and you got to consistently coach even if somebody's with you for years, right? Because when you get tired, you're going to fall apart. But you guys get these guys to own, your clients to own movements within, that first phase, really. What's some of the things you do to kind of like get your coaches to just have them just focus on the basics, focus on the little things, and just get them to own movements from the get-go?
Yeah. A couple of things, and we'll go back to preparation as far as like we talked about how preparation for your week and organization is important. Preparation from equipment and setup is important, because like I can't necessarily control who comes in to the gym and like what type of movement quality they're going to come with, right? So let's just say I have an adult group of 10 people, and a few of them can move well and a few of them can't move well. Well, maybe we go to do that toe touch squat, and I can easily give someone a heel lift, or I can easily give them a ball to do a counterweight squat, or I can easily give them some sort of support, whether it's a dowel rod or a TRX or a pole or something like that to help them. Now that sets them up to practice that pattern in an assisted portion. And then maybe a couple of weeks later, they're back doing that toe touch squat like you saw the guy do, right? But I'll tell you, a few weeks earlier, that guy probably couldn't have done that toe touch squat perfectly, like with their feet flat, But because we were prepared ahead of time to give him a regressed version when he first started and made sure it looked good, and like we're always judging by quality, like, hey, does this look the way we want? If it doesn't, how do we change it, right? Then within a couple weeks, they can get up to par and do things well. I think a lot of coaches struggle because they settle for good enough, like right at the start. They're like, they know it doesn't look right. They can look at that guy doing a toe touch squat and they see the heel up, or they see their chest is way forward, or whatever it might be, right? And they settle for, yeah, I'll take it. And then that person doesn't necessarily get better, right? Whereas if when you see that, kind of good enough squat, you're like, hey, maybe I'll throw a heel lift under there. Or maybe I'll just regress you to an assisted squat or a squat press out. And you give that person some space to learn motor control or work on that mobility, and they get better. Then all of a sudden they're getting better pretty quickly. And I think, like you said, the attention to detail from the start that like, okay, I want to look good, makes a big difference. And then in that process, also just being okay with letting them be regressed and practice that for a little while. Like, don't try to rush people ahead, because some of those people you saw, I might have had for 8 years, 6 years, 5 years, whatever, training with me. So they might not look like that on day one, but they might look like that by year 5. And it's because we like drilled the basics for a long time. So those details are really, really important.
No, I think you're right. Like, just, you see that so many times with coaches, right? Like where I'm guilty myself. Sometimes you want to like push somebody further to that next movement, or you get a little lazy. It looks good. Like instead of, no, this person needs to know they need to own this movement before I can move them on to something else. And if you set that standard at the very beginning, then that's when you're owning those little things, right?
Yeah, exactly. As long as you don't let them get away with like, if you, it's hard to go backwards. If you let them screw up a bunch and you're like, hey, we got to make it tougher now, it's a harder intervention, right? But if you're a little bit more strict with like what you'll allow at the start, then you can always go the other way, right? But it's hard if you let people if you let the inmates run the asylum at the start and you just kind of be lax with it, then it's harder to really hold everyone to the line afterwards,
It's always easier to progress than regress, right?
Absolutely.
I think we get trigger happy sometimes. Just want to go to the hardest thing right away.
No, I mean, just one more thing before we move on to something else, because that was like, I know you guys focus on the little things, and I know you have clients for years, but besides seeing that person own a movement, like your clients were teaching us stuff. And it just was amazing, just going, okay, well, they're my coach today, I guess, because they know this so well that they're going to teach me.
There you go.
Ashley, you had something.
Yeah. So, Kevin, I was just wondering, so for your clients that have really low mobility, like they can't touch their toes, I mean, their hands are to their knees, or their shoulder mobility is just horrible. How do you keep them patient through that process and keep them wanting to keep improving, for instance, to get to that point where they can do the deadlifts or whatever when their mobility is so restricted for so long?
Yeah. The big thing, and I always tell our coaches this, is like, if you're going to take something away, you got to give them something else. So you can't touch your toes. You're not going to be able to deadlift. Well, you can probably goblet squat, or you can probably push a sled, or you can there's another fitness option for them. And if you don't give them something back, then it starts to look like physical therapy, and they're going to be like, hey, I'm going to go somewhere where they're going to beat the crap out of me. Like, I'm going to go to CrossFit, or I'm going to go to Orange Theory, or whatever it is, right? Because those people will beat the crap out of them and make them sweat. And they want that. Like, obviously, everyone likes to exercise because you feel good when you work hard. If you work hard to a certain point, you sweat, you get blood flow, you get dopamine, all that stuff that you get when you exercise that makes you feel good. They still need to get that. And then as they get better, you can start to feed them back along that line. And ideally, like with the toe touch example, if we're doing the right things, if they're doing mobility work, if you're going through like a toe touch progression and you're progressing them along, then you should be getting back there at some point. And also, I try to make it not about the exercise, right? And I think, again, sometimes as coaches, we get focused on like, oh, I got to get you back to deadlifting, right? And it might be okay if, Lorraine, the 60-year-old woman, doesn't ever get to deadlift, right? It'd be cool if she did. But But if it means she just has to goblet squat and I can make that goblet squat hard, or I can make that sled push or that split squat or that single leg deadlift hard for her instead, and we can do all these other fitness things like carries and crawls and get-ups and push-ups, then maybe we don't get back to deadlift. But I always just give them other options, and then don't get hyper-focused on the exercise that you took away. Focus on them fixing that pattern and then training something else really, really hard, you know?
And just to follow up on that, I thought that was a great question, Ashley. I know for me personally, sometimes where it can be a struggle is, you know, one-on-one session, that is not nearly as difficult, but when you have a group and, you know, you get people where they know they're not ready, but they want to do what everyone else in the group is doing, even though they have no business doing that. I think that's where sometimes we struggle with coaching groups, is being able to communicate that. Is there anything you've found to really help moderate that in a group setting?
Mm-hmm. You know what's cool is, like, so on the back, have you seen this actually? I could send it to you guys, or I show it to you when I come out there. Is on the back of some of our adult sheets, and I don't even know if it's on all of them anymore, but we've gone over it as a group, is kind of what we do when we have to take things away from people. So from a group assessment standpoint, one thing we look at always is toe touch, leg raise, and then shoulder mobility. Because if you think about FMS or kind of anything really, those are the things where people are most liable to get hurt in training, right? If they can't touch their toes and we let them deadlift and swing, probably going to be a problem. If they can't leg separate in a leg raise and we let them single leg deadlift, they're going to be rotating all over the place. You probably see SI joint stuff. If we let them overhead press and they don't have shoulder mobility, you tend to see shoulder stuff. So we tend to take away those things if they can't do it. So what we do is we have a kind of a cooked up formula that, okay, these are the correctives they do, but then more importantly, here are the exercises they can do, right? And so that way our coaches in a group setting, it's very easy for them. We know that if they can't deadlift, they're probably going to do goblet squat, or they're probably going to hip bridge. Okay. Same thing pretty much goes for active straight leg raise, because it's typically a hip issue. Then for same thing with overhead press, we know if they can't overhead press, they're going to do the corrective stuff, but then they're either going to landmine press, push up, or do like a standing cable press. Like all of those are the go-to options. So when you're in a group setting and things are crazy, you got 10 people doing different stuff around you, you can easily be like, okay, you know, Lauren, this is what actually go in my group. I'm like, Lauren, this is literally what I did last night. You can't do dumbbell press. I want you to go do the cable press on the Kaiser. Okay. Then I had another woman in the group. She has some knee stuff. I was like, listen, you are not going to squat. You're going to automatically go to deadlift. So we already have these kind of progressions and regressions and lateralizations kind of thought out that our coaches know. So then we're not thinking, we're just kind of reacting and telling, right? So if you have those things written out somewhere, like on a sheet, and then maybe eventually committed to memory, then you can make these decisions quicker, you know?
Kind of if this, then that cheat sheet.
Exactly. And we go back to that book Checklist Manifesto. Like, I don't ever think I'm above using that, because it just makes my life easier, and you don't get stressed and you don't make mistakes, you know, nearly as often. So that's always going to be better.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got one more for you, and I know we're getting close to time, and I want to respect your time. But there's like one book that I hear you talk about almost every single time I've ever heard you on a podcast or when you come, is the 1 Minute Manager, and how you change that into like the 1 Minute Coach. It's like some bullet.
Yeah, that's going to be in my presentation when I come out too. I have that in my presentation when I come out, so we're going to be consistent. Yeah, you know what? I really like that book, mainly because it was short. You can read it in like an hour. It's really good. Mike, that was one of the first book club books Mike gave us years ago. And why I liked it was, one, for a couple of reasons. One, I had just kind of come into managing people here. Like, I started to have employees I had to manage as opposed to just like myself. And that's a hard thing to do. You know, it's kind of like that book, Crucial Conversations. Like, how do I tell someone when they do a good job? How do I tell someone when they're not doing such a good job? That's usually the harder part. And then how do I set my expectations and manage those? And that book does a very good job, because it teaches you how to interact in a way that communicates clearly your expectations, and then also sets the person up to be successful. And if they're not successful, it helps you intervene. So from a management standpoint, I'll tell you about it, and then we'll talk about how you just translate to coaching. And they talk about when you set expectations or set goals, right? that you lay out, okay, what's the long-term goal? And then what are the behaviors that we're going to agree that we're going to do, right? So say I was managing an employee and I'm like, okay, you want to consistently have this many sessions a week. You want to coach these groups. So what we're going to do, I need you to show up at this time consistently. I need you prepared with your program. I need you to understand the progressions and regressions. And as you start to do well, you consistently hit your sessions, I'll add more to your plate, right? Do you agree with me? And they'll say, yes, I understand that responsibility. Time flies by, let's say a month, and they did these things. Okay, great job. We recognize you did these things well. Okay, let's, raise the bar or, change the goal or change the goal line. Whereas if they didn't and you reprimand, you can say, okay, well, why didn't you do these things that you agreed to do with me? So it makes reprimand easy because that person verbally or in writing already agreed to these behaviors and they can acknowledge that. So if you get acknowledgement out of them, it makes reprimand very easy. Whereas sometimes when we ask people to do things, it's just kind of like a passive approach, and that doesn't work very well. Now, when it comes to coaching, we can talk about this in a long-term or short-term. So say I get a new client who wants to lose weight, right? They're like, I want to lose 20 pounds. And so then for them, 20 pounds is a carrot that's really far in front of them. You have to teach them how to get to it, right? And I'll essentially say, okay, well, these are the behaviors. And we all know if I can manage their nutrition, manage their sleep, and get them to train consistently, like I can guarantee I can get you to lose 20 pounds. Like I can definitely do that. Okay, do you agree to only drink one night a week? Okay, fine. You agree to cut the cookies out of your diet, 3 days a week? Great. Are you going to come consistently to the gym? Okay, great. We agree on those behaviors, whatever they might be. 3 months go by. Hey, Nick, I don't know if I want to train with you anymore. I haven't lost those 20 pounds. Okay, well, why don't we sit down for a second and let's talk about your behaviors from the last 3 months. Okay, are you still drinking every night? Yes. You still eating those cookies every day? Yes. And they've only been coming like 1 or 2 days a week. Okay, well, listen, I think that maybe we just discussed, let's just talk about changing our goal because your behaviors just are not supporting the goals that we set out, right? It makes intervening very easy from a coaching standpoint. Or if they do good, you just change your behaviors and move the goal out, right? So having a structure where you can clearly line up expectations or behaviors if it's a training situation, and then either reprimand or praise and set the bar a little higher makes it easy. And then from a short-term coaching standpoint, when we talk about coaching groups, right? Say I'm on the floor and I got 10 people right there, right? And the tri-set is hang clean for 3 sets of 5. And the core exercise is half kneeling chop, right? For 3 sets of 8. And then it's plank for 30 seconds, right? And what I hate is when I give a big explanation, then every athlete goes, okay, wait, how many reps? Oh, what, knee down? Right? That drives me insane because they just didn't listen, right? But it's my fault because I didn't ask for confirmation. And you guys are smiling because you know this happens, okay? So what I'll do, I'll be like, hey, what we're going to do, we got 3 sets of 5 hang clean. When we do hang clean, I want you to remember, start with your chest over the bar, big hard pull, catch with the elbows up. It's 3 sets of 5. All right, Nick, how many sets do we have? 3. How many reps do we have? 5. He repeats it back to me. Then he gives me confirmation. And everybody else in the group also just answered on their own in their head or they blurted it out. Okay, we're doing half kneeling lift. Okay, left knee, inside knee is going to be down every time. Inside knee. We're going to do 3 sets of 8. Remember, follow the rope with your eyes. How many sets and reps? Which knee is down, guys? Answer it back to me, right? So I just got confirmation. Okay, then when they have to ask me again later or they're doing it wrong, I'll be like, hey, what knee did we say was down? And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, because they had to acknowledge what you asked. So a lot of it's just about getting acknowledgement. And when it comes to coaching on the floor, I just said it's not 1 minute manager, it's 20-second manager, right? Because I just gave those cues in like 30 seconds or less because that's all you really have on the floor. You can't, kind of belabor it and drag it out. So it's just a coaching book. It's just a matter of what setting you're in when you deliver it,
Dude, that's awesome. I love that. I love that you're going to dig into that more too when you come out.
Yeah, that's going to be one portion of the presentation. I'm excited to give it. So I've given it once, and I'm going to give it a perform better, and then I'll give it to you guys. So I should have it down pretty pat by then.
Come over.
You what? Yeah, I'll have some practice. I'll have it down. I'll have it down for sure.
And you're at Perform Better in Orlando, right?
Yes, Orlando. I will be giving it down there next week.
I'll come see you then. I'll be there.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yep.
Very good. A little warm weather.
What's up?
I'm looking forward to getting into the sun a little bit. I mean, it's getting warmer in Boston, but it'll be pretty hot down there, I'm
Hopefully
sure.
it's not raining the whole time.
Yes, that would be nice. That would be nice.
Might need to take some baths and some sunscreen before you guys go out.
I definitely need some sunscreen, 100%.
I just want to throw one more at you before you go, if you don't mind.
No problem.
So I know Brendan's been here for a few more CFSCs than you've got to be able to experience, but it's kind of fun when he was on the call the other day. We threw some questions at him, and he was just transparent and just said whatever was on his mind. From what you've seen, yeah, from what you've seen with Vasa Fitness, what are some of the things that we've done right or currently doing right, and what are some of the things you think that need improvement?
I'll tell you point blank that you guys have taken on improving and like building a philosophy and building a team mindset better than any group of coaches have been with. And because like you guys have completely put yourself into CFSC, but you're building your own culture and you're building your own philosophy and you're building your own like model. You know what I'm saying? And the best thing you can do in building an organization or a business and a gym is build your own identity and get everybody united under that. And you guys have gone more full on into that than anybody I've ever seen. In that, like, listen, like you're doing this educational stuff here. You're hosting your own seminar. You're bringing us all the time as speakers. You're bringing in other people as speakers. So you're taking a really big business. Like Vasa's not a small operation by any means, right? And you're trying to build the best training model you can in a really big setting. And that's a hard task to do, to get a lot of trainers to think the same way. Like, trust me, I got less trainers than you on from top to bottom here. And it's hard to keep everyone on the same page, keep everyone informed, to keep everyone educated. And you guys have really dove into that kind of head first, really. And that's something to be really, really admired. So I respect that a lot.
Thanks. Now the hard part, right? Like, what are we doing wrong? What could we change?
Okay, well, so see, I haven't been there in over a year now. So I think that right now, if I were to ask you from your training model, are you doing much as far as like larger adult groups go, or is it mostly small group personal training and one-on-one?
We have probably I'd say 60%, 50 to 60% company-wide. We're doing about 6 to 8 people in a group. And then the rest would be like smaller than that or one-on-ones, yeah.
Then we do our large group of up to 20 in our team training setting. Like the room Nick's in right now is a team training room that you can do as many as 20 people and just more of a fun group hour. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one-on-one, small group, and large group.
Okay. I didn't know you were doing that. I was going to say, I figured you were still doing more smaller in one-on-ones, and I was saying transitioning to larger groups like adult groups like we have here, I was going to say would be a very good approach, because I did not think that was what you guys were doing, because I think once you get people to be less dependent on being on one-on-one with a coach, not only does it make your business more money and make you be able to have a larger reach, but it also makes the person less dependent on a trainer and more autonomous. So I was going to say doing more large group training, but apparently you're doing more large group training, because I feel like is that a newer thing for you guys?
Pushing towards this, yeah, it's kind of newer of like how on a grand scale.
Yeah, we're rolling it out everywhere.
Okay, yeah. So that would have been my main thing, and you guys seem to be doing that. So, you know what? I should have texted Brendan to get some dirt on you guys, and I could have used that on my response.
You should have.
I know. You know what? I was texting with him earlier. Costa Rica right now, so not too shabby.
He wasn't too brutal. He definitely let it on the table, but he wasn't too brutal with anything. So on the large group, like in a box gym, how would you
Mhm.
sell that a little bit more? Because our
Yeah, and that's
sales
the hard
guys,
part. Trying to get them to understand that you have really great coaches in a system that supports their coaches that can provide them a very similar experience to what they would get in a personal training situation at a lower price point. And that they can come more frequently and that they can experience like more trainers and more training sessions because they're not going to be captured by price. Because like I have people now who come to groups like 4 or 5 days a week and they could never afford personal training, and getting them to understand that, like, listen, you're going to really understand training so that you're not even really dependent on the coach. We're going to deliver it, but you're going to execute on your own. And then when you need that help, they'll be there for you. So getting them to really buy into the, again, you guys, systems to support what you're trying to deliver them.
awesome. Thanks, Kev. I could ask you questions all day, but I know we set aside 30 minutes and I already kind of took a little bit more of your time. So I'm excited for you to come out in June and drop some bombs.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
That'll be awesome.
Better.
Were you going right before too? Like you said, you were going to a sports team before you came out here.
Yeah, you know what? I added in. I'm going to the Denver Nuggets. So it's funny. I already booked to come out with you guys, and then they had reached out, and I said, "Listen, I'm not coming unless it's the few days before, because I'm already going to be out there." So we got a couple days in with the Denver Nuggets, and then I'll shoot right over to you guys. So it'll be good.
Wait,
So
you get a nice little trip for you.
Yeah, it's going to be – listen, this is a busy few weeks. I have Perform Better next week, Denver, then I'm coming to see you guys, and I'm home for 2 days, and I go to Munich. So it's a busy start to June, but it's a good start.
The life of Kevin. All right.
Yeah, and then we're starting with our summer group, so it's going to be good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thanks for hopping on a call.
Yeah, appreciate you,
sorry
man.
that we couldn't get your nice mug up on the video, but you know we got your knowledge, so that's the biggest thing. So
hey, happy to hop on and talk with you guys all the time. So thank you.
Cool. I'll see you in June. Thanks so much, Kev.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. See ya. Take it easy.